Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Stat Me Up for Anfield Index. It's not been the best of starts to the year, has it? It's not had that feel. Number one, it is freezing cold everywhere we are at the moment. Number two, we've had the scenario where the United game wasn't exactly what we wanted. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then the other night against Spurs, it looked like it was destined for a 0-0. However, a late goal for a player that shouldn't have even gone on the pitch or still been on the pitch. Yeah, there's a lot to consider. There's a lot to think about. There's one thing we're not going to like you for, Bart, though, because I walked outside my house this morning to drop my lad of school and my ears were hurting. It was that cold. It's not the same for you where you are, though, is it?
It's not, mate. I'm going to try and be nice. It's difficult. You know, I find it. I struggle to sleep, but it's a little bit hot. Put it that way. 30 degrees at the moment, minimum.
Yeah, how to make yourself feel probably sicker with the results. But we'll get into it, people, because we want to talk about the Spurs Carabao game the other night. I mean, I don't know if it's just punctuated by sort of their very late winner in this part. It just felt like under the eye test, we never quite had control. And maybe, as Arne Slot mentioned in his press conference, people are judging it against the 6-3 hammering of them earlier in the other month and the 5-0 battering away at West Ham. I'm going to be honest, though, that aside, it didn't genuinely feel like we were in control. We had our moments, but never seriously in control. Are you going to tell me the same on the stats?
It's an interesting one. I think context is always key with results. I think if we'd got the result against United that actually the stats show we should have done, which is probably a 2 or a 3-1 win. I think you go into this game a little bit. I think some of you don't care because it's the League Cup and the league, you're 9 points clear in the league. You're kind of like, you know what, 8 points, wherever it would have been. I don't really, I'm not bothered about that.
Yeah.
Or you're like, yeah, right, fair enough. They put effort in the weekend and we've chilled out a little bit here and got a result. So, yeah, there's part of me about that. But again, looking at the data, okay, so from a very top line stuff, right? And UP did this the other day. We'll do this later on, but possession. 56% to 44. So we just slightly nudged the possession overall. Field tilt, we always talk about as being a really important metric. It gives you a bit more granularity to the overall possession. So we had nearly 68% of the final third possession in our favour, right? So we spent more time in their box than they did in ours, pretty much 2/3 to 1. All right, so that's a good reflection. Total shots 14-9. That's not bad. Considering there was changes in this lineup, it wasn't. I know people were saying we were first choice. The midfield was first choice. Up front was it Jota, Salah, lost the other one on the left wing.
Cody.
Cody was fairly first choice, I would say. And the back line, Ali in goal, Bradley at right back, Costas left back, and you had Kwanzaa and VVD. So I would say the back line was not quite first choice. But anyway, so we more than nudged the field tilt.
Yeah.
We more than nudged the total shots. On target 6-3. That's not bad. Penalty box touches 37-19. That's a good number to have away from home. And to concede less than 20, again, that's not bad. And if you look at the half splits, we're conceding 11 in the first half, not 8 in the second. So again, that's not showing you that it was a iffy game. This is showing you that the process was largely working, should we say. Goals, obviously, they got the goal there. I don't really want to get into the debate about whether the player should have been or not. I think it's, for those who don't know, I didn't watch it live. I watched it as a rerun. But from the floor that was up there, you would have thought that the tackle happened and they went and scored. Well, that wasn't the case. So it's kind of a bit like, we still should have dealt with that situation better for that goal. Arguably, yes, second yellow, but and then we should have dealt with the attack better on that as well. I'll be honest with you, there's two instances we could have done better with. Okay, so yeah, I get the premise that people are annoyed about, but the actual two ends of the park, should we say, are not really linked to that one. If I've been honest with you, because Tottenham's process would have been another midfielder would have made that run, so it would have been another runner would have been on the end of that move. So anyway. So in terms of threat XG, 1.4 to 0.88, again, that's not bad. You know, in terms of we created more XG than them. Big chances, they create more than us. That's probably a slight worry. That's the only stat I would look at and go, okay, that's a problem. We look at threat though, 2.2 to 1.2. We didn't convert as much as our threat than they did. Okay, so that's the process. The process wasn't quite working as well as it should have done. That's a fair thing. And if we look at things like long ball rate, we had 11, they had 14, so not really a big thing. Crossing, we had 14 to their 10. So from a top line, there's not really there's not a lot to go, oh God, that was horrible. Which if you taken a snapshot of social media and the comments in the media, and actually you'd think it might have been. But I think that says to me that, okay, I think we slightly shaded the stats. If you look at the breakdown for the half, again, second half we're even more dominant on field tilt, 71. You know, we sent to their 28. So in terms of threat conversion, we're not as good. They go over 100% at this point, which is something to think about later in the game maybe. Penalty box touches, we increased our dominance in the second half, 22 to 8. So it's not like I think we got our players in the right positions. If we look at our Monte Carlo, which typically tells us how, if you ran the chances created in terms of XG, you ran it over 10,000 times, what would be the proportion of scoreline percentages if we look at that? So overall, it's saying there a 1-1 draw with a 1-0 to Liverpool are the two top line scores. Now that probably, if I'm being honest with you, is what the stats are roughly showing. It's got Liverpool as just over the 50%, just under the 50% mark for the win, and Tottenham at 23 with a draw again at 25. So, yeah, I could see how you could say we were never in control. I get that. We maybe some of our part, if we look at our passing analysis, so let's look at what percentage did we have in terms of length of passing chain. And we did spend nearly half our time in very low passing change, which is 1 to 5. Okay. Typically, when we show a lot of control, the mixes across the ranges are high. So we would end up with something like 30, 30, 30 across the split. So that would show you that we quite happily go through the gears. We can play it short, but then when we want to take control, we can go on the increase and increase that passing length up to 15, 20, right? Which is what the very high is. So that does show you a little bit there that we were a little bit too sharp in our percentages. But taking that, Tottenham went the other extreme, played a very short game. So 71% of their passing chains were below 5, which says to me they were winning it, popping it off and then playing it. And if you look at how did they use that, didn't really get into our zone 14 or half spaces, which as we saw at the 6-3, there was periods they did and they got chances from. So we did okay there. We stopped them getting into those dangerous areas. How did we do? Well, we did pretty good there. Right half space, that's Mo's area. Did we get Mo into good areas? Yes, we did. Particularly when Trent came on. Trent was very good at making sure we got passes into the box, passes into the half spaces. So there's a lot to like about the process. In terms of long balls, just to enhance that. So these are long passes. So this is first half, second half. Not a massive amount of difference for Tottenham, which indicates they were looking to play short, sharp, play a long pass into the final third, and then try and play. Okay, it's just that the volume was low, but that was a high percentage of what they did. So, I think there's a lot of things I wouldn't quite go away with we didn't play very well, just looking at our threat. So, a lot of our threat down this right-hand side, which is what we'd expect. Okay, probably a little bit too deep in the first half. If we look here, we generated the most amount of our threat in that sort of middle two strips, if you like. Whereas second half, we push up a little bit. And if we go to our old favourite, the off-the-ball stuff, So where did we press them? Here we pressed them in the wide areas, which is the full game. If we look at the halves breakdown, the first half we pressed them really hard down our right, their left, which I'm guessing Son played down there, correct? Off memory. So that explains that, and that's Bradley. Bradley loves the duel. His dueling rate, which we'll come on to in a minute, is normally pretty high. Second half, though, it flicked up to us dominating the left-hand side. So there's some things to think about. One of the things is, for me, about control is about you can have the ball, but when you don't have the ball, what do you do with it and where do you push the opposition, right? So what do you do with it when you try and win it? This is what Sonar Plus tells us. So this genuinely tells us that we were winning it and then trying to play wide-ish in the first half. I've seen this better. The problem here is it breaks down where we try and go through that chain from winning it, playing it long into the forward, winning it, going. So there's not the links. So when Tottenham away, you saw this massive areas of winning it and then a big U round where we'd move it into the final third. And that's probably part of the process which wasn't quite there. The second half, that's a bit of a mess, if I'm being honest with you. That's not our greatest off-ball discipline, should we say. So, I could see maybe the process worked better first versus second, although we had more field tilt in the second. So, I don't think that was as bad a performance as people were. I mean, let's be frank, I've seen people losing their mind over it, but yes, there's probably an element of truth that we never quite had that full control because our pass chain wasn't long. We weren't quite, particularly second half, we didn't quite get to maneuver them around into areas that we wanted them to play as well as we've done in the first half. So I think that's my look at it. Everyone will have their opinion, obviously. But it seems to me that from looking at the Monte Carlos, we could have just nicked it. And I think if you look at some of the chances that our old favourite Nunes had when he came on, I'm not lively. He had shot volume, which is something that he's been critical of. But if one of them goes in, that's a 1-0 game, I would suggest. The other way around, I think as it happens, they nick one. And I think that's probably the least likely result, should we say. A draw probably would have been fairish, but equally, us nicking one in that with the Nunes throwing the rest of it equally wasn't quite out of the realms of possibility.
It's funny how you say it, isn't it? It's just the way you judge it off these moments. Like you said, Nunes has two great chances. That one where Mo slides him through beautifully and you think, just lift it. And he does, unfortunately, do the standard Darwin, whack it at the keeper. Trent has the unbelievable volley, which is annoyingly cleared off the line, isn't it? So that was the bit that you thought it would be as well. McAllister has the header. Nunes has a header at the same time as well. Probably the one thing as well, Bart, people were, it almost doesn't count, but it still lives in the memory. They had a disallowed one where the ball went over the top. And I think, do you remember Solanke was just offside, Trent moved up. And that's probably the annoyance. People thought, come on, we'll learn that lesson. Don't get caught again. And the ball over the top does us. To be honest, Konate, who's clearly not fit at all at the moment, gets nudged off the ball quite weakly, to be honest, by Solanke. He's just not fit. It is quite obvious. So those moments do kind of live in the memory a bit. And there is two players I think it is important I want to ask you about, because the skipper has had about 8,000 partners in the middle of defence in the last few games. And he was the official man of the match. For me, I thought he was clear miles above everyone else on the pitch. It feels like Virgil's kind of holding it together a bit at the back at the moment. I'm intrigued what the stats say about the skipper.
No, I think you're probably right there with Virgil playing. I think with every partner, he plays a slightly different role, right? Yeah. When he plays with Konate, he's not a sweeper, but he plays the more mop-up kind of thing and just deals with any other headers that come his way. When he plays with Gomez, he's the dominant centre-half and Gomez does the sweeping. Yeah. When he plays with Kwanzaa, he's kind of got to do a bit of both because Kwanzaa, you don't really know yet what he's going to do. Yeah. And Endo, and that's just him. He's basically saying, I'll do all of this stuff. You just man mark. and that's not a criticism in there. You're just playing a DM who's 5 foot. He's not big, not far bigger than me. You've met me, so he's playing at centre half in a game against Premier League opposition. The other dominant centre half is just going to go, do you know what, I'm going to do that. What that means is he plays almost 4 different roles in this game, and and so it's credit to him that he's putting in the performances it is. To be honest with you, I thought against United he was exceptional. There are some moments where even he could have been slightly better, but I thought it was brilliant. If you look at him here, though, these are this is on ball stuff, mate. So we had about 11, just under 12% of our time on ball, of our possession, should we say? So just sort of 10% on ball time. His pass success 92. He's typically high because he generally does a lot of the recycling around from the back. But if we look at what he did, he had 1 key pass, which is pretty good from centre half. 6 long passes, which has been dipping off for him. So that's good to see that returning. Progressive passes 4. So that's good from centre half. He's breaking 2 or 3 back. He's moving the ball 25% closer to goal. So that's good. If we look at how did his role in creating threat, or what I call EPV. So he created 7.5% of our threat from centre half. That's pretty good, to be honest with you, for a centre half. The other thing to look at in terms of where we are, if we then look at what was his connections like? So his connections, he had a good strain of connections. Typically, he generally deals with the fullback, the 6, and his other centre half. So for him to see, he's hit both centre halves, fullback, goalkeeper, and 2 centre mids. So that's fairly decent for him. 100% pass rate for those connections. Now, if we look at him off the ball, so duels, he actually only won 50% of his duels, but he only took part in 2. Virgil typically doesn't do duels; he reads the game beforehand. Aerials, 83%. That's at a level that we try and sign players at, right? That's one of the worries we have about Kwanzaa. Endo, 67%. So, there's lots of things. Touches, typically is 40-40, so that's defensive and middle, and he has a little bit of time up front when he goes up for the other centre halves and that. And he had 89 touches, which is slightly lower than normal. So, I would say that's a very, very good performance. I'm not going to say that anything else. I thought that was, I could see why he got man of the match, should we say. If we roll down to a player I thought did well, I put in there their goal scorer because, there's a reason for that. And we've got Bergwijn in here. So I said Bergabell, maybe. So what did he do in the game? Because I know quite a lot of media. He was above his team average for his position for on-ball time, aerials, passes, and possession, just about. But where he did well at was shots and duels. So that's a pretty good performance from them. For us, I picked out Mac because his shots for someone who's been playing a bit of a 6/8 was above his compatriots in midfield. He was on or above for possession, passes, duels, and on ball time. Low in terms of threat creation, which is not like Mac. Normally he finds a ball. So apart from the threat creation, he was in and around where we are. And areas he didn't win any. But so that's just some areas I thought as another offer up, should we say? Because there wasn't really anyone else that. I mean, Costas he's done okay. He's not brilliant, but he's kind of Costas, isn't he? He's not. He's in and around average for all the metrics, and he's above for aerials and EPV, so which is threat. So there's some candidates in there, but I think Berge but to be honest with you, I think Berge's form had dropped off a little bit. I'm not saying massively, but it had come off a little bit of a clip. Newcastle, Fulham, and a few other games. I think he just slightly dipped off a bit. It's really hard to be superhuman for 56 games.
True.
Right? So there is going to be a little bit of a drop, and that's unfortunately coincided with Konate being injured and he's swapping partners. So for him to carry on at this good level, it's nice to see him now begin to tick back up again. Mo is Mo, as we said. So I think you then have to judge everybody else how it is. And for me, I thought Matt gave a pretty pretty good account of himself. I don't know if that matched your thoughts on the game at all.
Yeah, to be fair, even in the last two games, which it's fair to say, United won a little bit, probably not exactly what we wanted, maybe punctuated by the result. And then obviously you look at this one, there's been a bit of criticism for the team, maybe a bit overhyped, I think you said, and I agree with that as well. However, it does feel in the last few games, especially, Van Dijk and Mac have been at their top level. Like you say, Van Dijk's almost just a level above everyone else, and him and Salah, you have to judge differently. But for the best of the rest, as I'd call it, Mac has been absolutely there. And that enforced break seems to have done him the world of good, in all honesty. His form seems to have been really decent since then. So it is good that he got called out. And I mean, we talked about parts. It is right that we talk about the vice captain because, let's be honest, he got pelters for Sunday and Manchester United. And a lot of it, quite rightly, you can't dress it up. He had a cameo, and does it drop, rotated? It doesn't really matter. From his cameo, though, I mean, he has the brilliant volley cleared off the line. We just seemed better and more control with Trent on the pitch. And part of the eye test told me, I almost counted them up. Connor Bradley kept losing the ball, whereas Trent's passes were going forward. They were incisive as well. Does this, or do the stats map up, is the question, I suppose.
Yeah, Trent for me, 39 minutes. I know officially the way I do it, but I count the actual time that was on the pitch. 39 minutes. So in that time, he had 5% of our possession and just under 4.5% of our on ball time. Which, if you compare him for the guy who came on for, Connor had 9 in 71. So that's not bad. That's a fairly dominant period, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Pass success back up to 82%. The only problem I've got, pass success, and this was mentioned on UP with the United game. In one of the best performances we've had, Champions League final against Spurs, his pass success was in the 20s. So it's not always about that. It's about what he does and his off-ball work to match that, all right? So let's be fair to him and say 82% is great, right? But equally, he's in the team to take risks, all right? It's also, he needs to then back up if that risk goes wrong. And that's the bit on Sunday I think he didn't do. He did what he was asked to do on the ball. I mean, he still had a hand in both goals, to be honest with you, in terms of the balls in and that. But I agree with the off-ball. I'm not trying to defend him. I'm just trying to say that pass success isn't always the biggest metric. Receiving, that's fairly standard for him. He receives it under pressure. He's fine with that. In terms of percentage of EPV, he created 11% of our threat in 36 minutes. That's quite that takes quite some doing, if I'm being honest with you, considering the next highest is 16, which is Costas, who was on for the whole game. So I would suggest he's done it in the world as good. I think it was right for Slot to take him out of the firing line, getting back in a fairly low level game. Not low level. I know it's a semi-final. People love a go at me. It's Liverpool, but it's a semi-final of the League Cup.
Yeah, it's good to see that as well, especially as you said, for 39, 40 minutes to have created 11% of the EPV. It did have the feeling that when Trent came up, it did go up a level, just the way we were playing, the passing, like you said. And if that volley goes in, if Dragusin doesn't block it on the line, everyone's raving about it. And probably, as you mentioned, the off the ball stuff, I love the fact in this one, I don't know if you clocked it, I saw Trent sprinting back 3 times. He doesn't always win it, but the effort.
Yeah, and he's won 50% of his duels in this game in that limited time. He had 41 touches, right? That's more, do you know, comparatively in 39 minutes, that's an amazing amount of touches to have. And he had 20 in the midfield. He had 18 in the final third and 1 in the penalty box for fullback. And he played fairly wide, if I can have a look at where.
Yeah, he did.
Just trying to pick out his touch map, if it actually brings up. No, it won't come up. He played wider as well. So I personally think that's a step in the right direction. Let's be fair with him. I think that's a move forward. I think it's very important sometimes. Us as fans get all in there. Oh, it's because of this. It's because of that. You can't just have a bad day in the office. You can just go, do you know what? I couldn't deal with being 3-1 or 2-1. and he didn't. The effort wasn't there 100%. Was the team as good to set up to support that? Probably not either, if I'm being honest with you, on Sunday. So this was good to see that he put the effort in. Was the team there to support him? Maybe not, because it was carrying bits and bobs. But no, I thought Trent's cameo, that's more like the numbers that we're expecting Trent to be. You know, I think I noted some of the notes I sent through for the UP pod on United was that his created numbers were the same as Robbo's in the United game. Well, that doesn't normally happen. He's normally miles above the other fullback. So in this game, you can see that even in his limited time, he's matching or on par with Costas. So yeah, I think it was a useful cameo. That's smart from Slot, I think. I hope he doesn't play at the weekend, but you never know.
Yeah, hopefully, let's be honest, it gets him in the right frame of mind. We've got over that hurdle. There might not be as much focus on Forest for him, but we'll see in that. And I did want to ask you, because we've talked about this sort of off camera and as well. The last two, maybe we just because we want that league so bad and everything, that justified the United result and the performance. Maybe the Trent situation made us think it was worse than it was overall. Maybe the late goal against Spurs actually makes us think it's worse than it is, because as you said and show me, to be fair, we had most of the field tilt. We had double their amount of touches in the box pretty much as well, bar one. So there is a lot on the stats to like. Was that something that came up that actually it feels bad maybe because of the result, but maybe it wasn't that bad?
Yeah, I think I've said this. I think I said this to you off camera, and I definitely said this to Darth before UP for the United game, and I do agree with the boys what they said. United felt like another one of them. If you don't take your early chances, you do sometimes come unstuck. Forest at home, funnily enough, was the last game. We didn't take the early chances, and we got beat. Right, this game.
Yeah,
we did have early chances. I've said to you, Cody and Mac, one of those should have scored. Right, they're both 0.4 chances. That's a very good chance. And we're talking like a centimetre either side of where they put the ball. If Cody actually decides to use his standing foot, which is probably a bit harsh then, but you know what I mean? Either one of those chances goes in, I am convinced we win that game. Right, we just sail on and we win that game. And even at the end, Van Dijk, I think, has a 0.25 chance, 4 yards out, to win the game 3-2. So for me, and I was there, you know, that you and I were there. United is one of those games you want to be there. I mean, I delayed going home for that game. So it is a massive emotional game, and it's about them, right? Us versus them. But actually, when you break it down, it was just a bad day at the office, but we did enough to win that game. So United played their best game of the season. We played one of our worst, and we were still better than them, stats-wise. So I'm not concerned. The League Cup, I always treat differently, because I've seen some howler performances. I've seen some really good ones. We beat West Ham, was it 5-1 at home or 5-0 at home the previous years, and then drew with Arsenal in the league the following weekend. So for me, they're not really linked, because you only make changes, even in this game. He kept the midfield the same. Yeah. He changes the 9. He changes 3 at the back 4. So that's 4 or 5 changes that he doesn't do normally. He normally makes 2 changes a game. So I'm not that concerned. I'm intrigued to know what he does at the weekend. I really am. But for me, Forest is the biggie. We have to. That's the one. If he doesn't go right, then all right, fair enough. We could re-have this conversation. But for me, we did enough in United to win the game. This League Cup game, one of them for me. The stats say that probably should have nicked it, but a draw is probably a more fair result. And we didn't deal with the situation well enough and got punished, to be frank. Yeah, sometimes it is just small moments in matches, but there is a second leg. And like you said, it's weird at the moment, because we're not just ignoring Accrington. We just know it's not a focus, really, isn't it? Everyone's looking for rotation. It's hard. It's near impossible not to cast our eyes to Forest on Tuesday night, isn't it? I mean, it sounds mental saying this, Bart. Forest 6 points behind us, level on points with Arsenal. No one's having that at the start of the season. Forest, who have won their last 5 in a row. They've conceded
the same amount of goals as us. I mean, their defence has been insane when we look at players' parts. And the thing is, when we talk about Forest threats and that one coming up, Chris Wood's the obvious one people are going to point towards. I mean, why wouldn't you? 12 league goals. That's absolutely sensational for any forward. And there are other players like Morgan Gibbs-White. I mean, 7 goal contributions across his 16 games, a big chance creation magnet, especially the way they play, Barts, as you know, very counter-attacking their style. In a weird way, when we talk about threats, I know we don't talk about defenders, but Milenkovic has been sensational for them in the air, just does all the ugly stuff so well. I mean, look at that. 19 games and 9 clean sheets. We'd be happy with that as Liverpool stats. There's no two ways about it. So I'm kind of intrigued, Bart. Like, are they overperforming? Are they underperforming? Are they, because no one's got Nottingham Forest level on points with Arsenal at this stage of the season. So I'm intrigued by this.
No, no one's got that. I mean, let's just be honest. This hands up here. A lot of people have Forest for relegation. So, you know.
Yeah.
But if you look at Forest here, Understat, our old favourite. So, goals. Understat saying they should have scored 30. They've scored 29. So they're pretty much bang on for goals, right? So that is how it is. That's what 1 point something or other, 1.12 or something a game. So
yeah,
if you look at conceding though, so they are saying that they should have conceded just short of 25 and they've only conceded 19. So they're running a little bit hot defensively, a little bit. Points wise, Understat have got them overperforming, which is probably fairly where they want to be. So yeah, I think it's no one had Forest where they are. All right. If you look at the home split, that's often what people look at. So at home, they are underperforming. So they're running cold up front, not by much. So they should have scored 3 more goals at home than they did. Against, they've conceded 7 and they should have conceded 9. So, okay, so they might be not as prolific up front as they are away from home, but defensively they're in and around pretty much bang on. And points-wise, they're pretty much bang on where they were expected to be at home. So, yeah, I am. It's an intriguing one. I think they play counter-attacking, deep block, defensively really good. It's not a surprise to me they got a centre half who does just heads and bodies because that's generally what they'll ask to do. So we've got to be smart in our play. Mac's going to be absolutely critical, sliding the balls in down wherever he can find a gap between centre half. The choice of 9 will be really interesting, and the choice of left wing will be really interesting. Whether he chooses a Diaz style to go out the fork, to go out the wide player, or whether he plays a Cody to come in and be a bit averted. I don't know, and then plays Jota down the middle. So that'll be really interesting to see what he does. Midfield for me, I think he'll go back to his tried and tested touch where everybody's fit, but I think it will be Mac, Grab, Dom. Again, I think that was a key reason we didn't win against United. I just think Dom would have shut down Bruno, no matter about it. So yeah, that'll be interesting. And Konate's got another way to get fully fit, which we're going to need him because as much as aerially in their box they're strong, they're also aerially the other end of the pitch as well. So if we look at though something we said about West Ham and other teams, is how many shots do they take a game and how many do they concede a game. So typically here there's shots on target, and this is just Premier League, so this is for Forest. They are taking not a lot of shots. This is shots on so shot volume and then shots on target. So they're typically around. So last one, you said they won the last 5, yeah? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 of the last 5, they've got 10 shots, okay, in total, and they've only had about, let's say, half of those on target. All right. Conceding, they have conceded 13, 8, 7, with only less than half on target. So they don't take a lot of shots, but they don't let you take a lot of shots. Remember, West Ham were really high. Leicester were really high in their 20s, yeah? So they're almost hot. They're almost allowing half the amount of shots of previous opposition we've played. So, yeah, that's an area which Nunes is really good at. if you remember his Wolves sides, they'd play at that, sometimes 3-5-2 or whatever, but they basically make sure the central area is really protected. It was really hard to get shots off. We had to play amazingly well in moving it really wide, bringing it in, and played a bit of counter to get the chances. So, yeah, I think it'll be intriguing to see how he sets up. That's just on shot volume. But, yeah, so I would suggest it's going to be a low shot volume game. And you've got to hope that our three have a better quality in terms of their shots than we allow them. So it's not something I'm massively concerned about. Let's have a look at just for comparison, because people will ask me, what do we do? So it loads up. So for Liverpool, so we typically take, so there you go, we're 14, 18, 22. So we're around in between 18, 20 shots a game. Whereas Forest are only allowing you 10. So there's a bit of an argument to be had about whose tactics is going to win out there and against what we're allowing. So we went through a really, really low period of allowing not a lot. So we had 6, 9, 4, 7, 13 against United, which is something to be a little bit worried about. But so we are fairly measly as well in terms of allowing shots on target. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I'll just put that in Premier League, just have a little look. Yeah, so against what we allow. Yeah, so Premier League shots on target, generally speaking, I would say that brings it an average below 10 we allow on target, which is less than Forest. So yeah, I think it'd be really interesting to see. I think if they sit back, it might be very, very similar to the Forest at home game. It's just about taking the chances we do correct, because they're going to be really precious against a side that generally doesn't give a lot away. The XG they give away isn't a lot. They don't allow a lot of shots. So when you do get an opportunity to get a shot, you're going to need a high accuracy shooter, someone who adds XG to their shot. It wouldn't surprise me if Jota plays up front in the 9.
Yeah. It's got all the makings of that. There's not going to be many chances. It might just be who takes the 1 or 2 either side that comes their way. This has definitely not got a high scoring written all over that. I've seen Helio Matias puts there, how good is Murillo? I think as Bart showed, the chances they don't give up, Milinkovic, Morata tend to be the more physical side. Murillo with his left foot, he's more the ball playing, isn't he? A bit of a smaller centre half. The others are, better in the air. And also, as you said, Bart, they protect that middle. Like Yates is, in the nicest way, with the greatest respect, Yates is there to clog people and break it up. Gibbs White is very good going both ways, some engine, and Elliot Anderson's having a great season as well. I mean, this is not going to be high scoring. This is going to be a tough away day for us, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, much like last season's, different manager, but we went there very, very, I was just trying to be on that player. What was his name? Murillo,
there he is.
Yeah, there he is, for Forest. So, yeah. Matches. I think much like last season, it took the last real kick of the game to do it. I think it's going to be a need for us to be very patient. We're going to have a lot of the ball, so we need our quality to be spot on. None of this slip hazard passing that goes on sometimes. We just need to be spot on when our passing, keep the tempo going. It's another game for me that Mac is going to have to be absolutely outstanding, if I'm being honest with you. Just looking at Murillo's, where is he at the moment? So what's the aerial win rate? So he's at 100. He's 61 aerial win rate for Murillo, which is not bad. We wouldn't sign him for that, but he's had seasons where he's had games where he's had 100%. He's had some poor games as well. I think you're right though. Passing wise, he's not his strong point. Passing, completion, 79 on average, whereas Burgess in the 90s. So he probably does. Yeah, he does the more defensive work, should we say? But he's a good player. For the money they paid for him, he's okay.
Yeah, they were good. To be fair, it maybe suits them what Nuno sets them up to do. sometimes make it ugly. It's not pretty on the eye, but effective is effective. And to be fair to Forest, this isn't being derogatory. That's why they're, third in the league, only on goal difference as well. They're having a sensational season. So there we go, people. It was, how would we put it? It wasn't as bad as the stats told us, actually. It just felt bad maybe because of a last-minute winner by Spurs. United the same. If we take the chances, it's maybe a different story completely. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, I know people will be saying. This one against Forest, it ain't got the makings of a high-scoring, high-chance game. It does have the feelings of there's maybe not going to be that many chances. Which team takes them? I think as Bart's makes a very fair point, this feels like one of those games that's made for Jota out of anyone. So we'll see what the lineup is. But we have ran through it all. We have given you the stats. One of us from a freezing cold Edinburgh, one of us from a hot, sunny climate in 30 degrees. So just direct your hate that way. But before you do that, all it leaves me to say as ever is, Bart, for the time, the numbers, and for the insight, it is much appreciated.
No worries, anytime.
And ladies and gents, that was another Stat Me Up